I didn't get a chance to say good morning before, so I'm saying good morning now. And it's good to be back. I took my annual 2-month vacation in January and February, since I have a little distance to travel to come here. And this year I was gifted with a trip to the Tucson area, and was a brand new experience, and I'm very grateful for that. And we're not going to be talking about that today, though. Maybe some other time we'll share a little bit about that. We'll keep it in suspense. So today we're talking about, or I'm talking about, being grounded in spiritual truth. And at first it seemed like a little bit of a interesting theme for the month, but as I thought about it, I think that grounding reminds me of divine order, and I think that right now at this time in our lives and in our world, it'd be good to think about some divine order. So what is grounded? Being grounded is the ability to be aware and conscious during the present moment. It means being content with who we are, fully human and fully divine. In Unity, we talk about there is a divinity within each and every one of us, and there's a divinity around us. And so being grounded is being aware of that as we move through our days, our nights, as we move as we move through our life. And most of you know that we're now in the Lenten season. This is the first Sunday in Lent, and different religions, different spiritual practices all over the world tend to take this time of the year, take this time in spring to go inward, just as nature goes inward and comes out at this time of year. So it's not just Christianity that studies this at this time. And it's a period of reflection and release. It's a period of time where we can look at our lives and look at maybe what we'd like to change in the year. It's not a time of necessarily of just giving up things. I know some of the Christians, it's like, well, I'm going to give up something. I'm going to give up something. But it's a time to look at how we're living our lives. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about that, around Christmas time and New Year's time, we have 2 ceremonies that we do. One is we let go of the things that we did last year that we don't want to continue to do. But another part of that is we look forward to what we're going to be doing this year to improve the way we're living our lives. And this is a time maybe when we want to go back and say, what was that word that I wrote on my white stone? And how am I doing with it? Am I paying attention to it? Have I forgotten it? Did I not go deep enough into the meditation and get a new word then? Is it time maybe for me I can do that ceremony anytime I want. In fact, I think it's in the back of our songbooks, the meditation. So this Lenten season gives us the chance that it's a sacred time when we can let go of what no longer serves us in our lives. It means being content with who we are, and it's a period of reflection and release. So Lent has a time that we look at the story of Jesus as he moved through to the crucifixion. It's a story of the Garden of Gethsemane, but it's showing us that human feelings are acceptable even to those that are aware of their divinity. Right now, I think we all have a lot of human feelings going on with all that's happening. And we're going to look at how, as we move through this time of Lent, how the story of Lent gives us a way that we can live our lives and move through to a greater knowing. So let's look at being ungrounded. We're talking about being grounded, so let's look at what ungrounded is. When we're ungrounded, our thoughts may be scattered in many different directions. We may feel an urgency or get caught in regret. Trauma is very ungrounding, and those who struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder can have great difficulty in remaining grounded. The things that are going on around us, or even the emotions that we are experiencing, we become ungrounded. When we are ungrounded, our energy shifts from our body. So that's not a good place to be. And I was kind of scattered earlier this morning as I was getting ready to come here. And I had to remember to be within. So being grounded means, as we talked about in the Daily Word this morning, being awake and present to life in mind, body, and soul. And it's expression of our love and our kindness. When we're grounded, it's an energy state. Our energy is fully rooted in our body and through our awareness and our presence. So when we're grounded, we're totally rooted. When we're ungrounded, our energy is escaping in some form through our thoughts or our emotional energy. This can happen in many ways and often is a means that our subconscious uses to help us cope and protect us from our harsh environment. The subconscious mind naturally removes our energy and we feel safer. So when we are feeling threatened is when we become scattered. In any way that we may feel threatened, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, physically. So we may at those times have regret or worry. We may also at those times connect with others in a way that is through, let's say, negative ideas, like gossiping or connecting in our suffering. And that is not a way that we want to connect with others, because that increases that energy around suffering. We want to connect with others from a higher place. We have some misconceptions about being ungrounded. I know one of the things that we talk about for grounding is, early on, I remember that I was told that I needed to get outside and put my feet in the grass. Now, last week Marilyn told us that she likes to do that, and I happen to be very allergic to bees, and so that would not be a good idea for me. But we can be grounded at any time in any place. We can ground ourselves in an airplane, being thousands of feet above the earth, just by bringing our attention to our bodies, to our spirit, to our divinity. We can ground ourselves there. We can be ungrounded if we're walking on the beach and digging our toes in the sand. So it's not a matter of where our body is, but it's where our emotions are feeling, our energy is placed. So knowing that, it takes a little bit of pressure off. I know, remember when I first started doing that, I felt like I had to constantly be walking on the ground, and I was constantly trying to do that. This morning, of course, we all got up an hour earlier, even though our clocks didn't say that. But I wanted to make sure I was really awake and didn't fall back to sleep. And one of the ways that I have of doing that is just opening the door and breathing in the energy, no matter what the temperature is outside. In fact, sometimes it's a little better if it is a little cool outside. So those are some of the ways that we can ground. So what is spiritual grounding? Well, one of our principles is that it's not enough to know all the truths, the spiritual truths. There's one God. We have a spark of divinity within us, and we change our life with our thoughts. But one of the final ones is, it's not enough to know these truths. but we have to live them as well. So not just mentally know truth, but to actually live it and incorporate it in our lives. I was talking this morning with someone, and we talked about how often that a negative statement comes out of us. And we don't realize we're doing it because we're such a habit of looking at the negative things. And when we catch ourselves in that moment, that's when we can be grounded, bring ourselves to the truth of who we are. So this Lenten season offers us a sacred time to let go of what no longer serves us. And it's this period of reflection and release. And we do have a Lenten booklet that Unity Village puts out, and I don't know if we got them here. We didn't get them here this year. We can, if you want one, you could probably call and get one. I think it's still, I saw something that there's still time to do that. And this booklet goes through how the teachings of how Jesus went through it is a direction for how we can go through it. So on the first Sunday, which is this Sunday, we can draw many lessons from this brief story of how to apply to our own spiritual development. The first thing that we hear and talk about, and this comes from Matthew 26 to 46, and they used Matthew because that's the one that goes into the most detail. And the first thing was, he went apart. He wanted to pray alone. And that's one of the things that we are to do if we need to get ourselves grounded. We need to go apart. Take a few minutes. Take some brief time. I tell the story that when I was learning how to do meditation many years ago, and I was working and some of you know I worked in a nuclear plant, and it was loud, and there was, we were using walkie-talkies back then, and there was always a lot of noise. And when I got stressed out, what I had to do was take myself away from that. And the only place I could do it was to go to the ladies' restroom. And that was the only place I could be. But it's really funny when I think about it, because in the midst of all that noise and chaos, that I could find a place where I could be quiet within just for 2 or 3 minutes sometimes, and go back out and be realigned with my consciousness of the divine. We don't know how hard it is for us to maintain an elevated state and not be pulled into some outer drama. It is hard for us not to be pulled, especially right now in the time we're living in. It's very easy to be pulled into the drama. All we have to do is, actually, I don't even have to turn on my phone. I'll get a ding, and it's a text, and it's not something that I want to see. But I can allow myself to be alone and immerse myself in the divine presence. Now, we can do that anywhere. We can do it in a nuclear power plant. We can do it in nature. We can do it in whatever place we have that allows us to feel comfortable. The next thing that he did was he asked his friends to support him. He took some of the disciples with him. And we can ask for support too. We have support here in our spiritual family. We have support from our friends and our families. Spiritual and emotional support, simply to be present and awake with each other. Just to listen. Sometimes we don't know how maybe to support our friends, but if we just listen. I recently did that too, and I don't know why I'm telling on myself this morning, but a friend called me and told me with some problems, and right away, my mind went into the I want to fix it for you mode. It's just natural for me to want to solve problems and fix it. And as I was doing this, I did ask her, do you want to pray? And she said yes. And I hung up the phone, and I called her back, and I said, you know, I realized I wasn't exactly listening to you. You didn't want me to fix you. You just wanted to share with me. And she laughed and said, yeah, I did. So we can remember that. We just allow others to share their feelings, or we share our feelings with others. And then the other thing is to be aware of our feelings, even when they're not good feelings. So many of us want to be tough, and especially when we're on a spiritual path. what we think we want to do is to be positive all the time. That's not doable, I don't think. You know, even Jesus was not positive all the time. And so that gives us permission to feel all of our feelings. And when we feel them and share them with others, we make ourselves vulnerable and we make ourselves open to the divine and the spirit within. So, since we sometimes in Unity refer to Jesus as our way shower, and he showed us that human feelings are acceptable, even to those of us that are aware of our divinity. And we don't need to be positive all the time, and we don't need to handle everything alone. It's okay to ask for help. We are fully human and fully divine. And that's one of the things that is difficult for us sometimes. We seem to separate them. Well, I'm over here, I'm now being my divine self, and then I get a little bogged down with it, and then now over here I'm going to just be my ordinary self. We are both at the same time. And so now we move into the second Sunday, and this is one of the things that's dear to my heart, because prayer and unity is the way unity started. And the second Sunday, Jesus prayed no matter what. So during this story, he knew that there were soldiers coming for him. He knew what was going to happen, but he still prayed. He didn't stop praying. And sometimes when we're in that position, we don't remember maybe some of the flowery prayers we learned when we gave up, or even we don't necessarily remember our positive way of praying in unity, but it doesn't matter because we just pray. And we can tell, here's one of the things that I've learned recently, is that, and I'm almost ashamed to say it's just recently, is that we can share everything with God. The funny thing is, or the divine, or love, or Great Spirit, whatever you call it, we can share everything because it already knows it anyway. And when you realize that, and to just be able to share all of our feelings, even our anger, our disillusionment, our fears, we can share everything with God. And that was what was being taught in this time. We might even prepare to remind ourselves that we agreed at a soul level to come here at this time. And another book that I'm reading right now is When You Find Yourself in Transition, and it's a unity book. And in that book, it talks a lot about transition equals transformation. And after all, isn't the story of Easter a story of transformation? And as we're going through transitions, which I venture to say the whole world is going through a transition right now, and it can lead to a transformation of humanity. That's what's going on right now. When we get disillusioned, we can bring ourselves to that place and know that we are aware of what's going on, and we are aware of our divinity, and we do know how to bring our energy higher. Based on these lessons, these stories are how we can live our life. And so we base it on these lessons. Jesus honored his calling. We being aware, maybe that's our calling. What is it that we're here to do? We're here to love. The universe is love. We are here to love. We are in a very challenging time in many ways to do that. But if that is our calling, we're helping in the transition and the transformation. We accept our human reality. We know that everything isn't going to be roses and fairies all the time. We know that as humans, we have things to go through. And we also know that we are divine. We are children of the universe. We are children. We are God's children. We are loved. And it is up to us how we move through this. So when we look within to find our power, instead of looking out into the world to get power from somewhere else, when we look within, as the story of Easter tells us, when we do look within, then we have the power to go through this transition, to go the transformation, to go to the evolution that our world is going through right now. So as you move through your week, as you move through your day, just begin to notice the idea of when you feel yourself maybe going downward energetically or spiritually, and just take a moment apart. Allow yourself to pray. Allow yourself to ask for help. It doesn't mean you're weak or helpless. It's acknowledging the fact that together we can move through this. Thank you.